Did Phil Spencer just admit that there is a flaw in one of Xbox's most important features? What is up, y'all? I am Ray, and this is my channel, Xbox Ready, where we get on and we talk about Xbox stuff. The latest news, rumors, games, accessories, pretty much anything I want to talk about as long as it's about Xbox in some way. And in today's video, we're going to talk about how recent comments from Phil Spencer have me seriously rethinking the future of Xbox Game Pass. Let's rewind a little bit. Let's go back to the beginning of this console generation. Sure, Microsoft had spent the better part of, 6-7 years getting their butts kicked by Sony when it came to the Xbox One versus PlayStation 4, but going into this current generation, there was still hope that they could turn it around. It was widely understood that Xbox had certain advantages going into the launch of the Xbox Series X and S that their competitors just didn't have. One of the most obvious advantages was this massive amount of IP, this dragon's hoard of IP that they had accumulated after going on a spending spree, gobbling up these studios and publishers left and right throughout the 2010s. Suddenly, Xbox wasn't just about Halo, Gears, these FPS games, racing games like Forza Horizon 5 or Motorsport. No, after buying Ninja Theory, Double Fine, Mojang, of course, Bethesda, ZeniMax Media, characters like Steve, Raz, Senua, the Dragonborn, they were being put right up next to Master Chief in all of Xbox's marketing. The idea was that with all of these new studios, these games, this IP, again, under their belt, they were going to pivot away from their identity a little bit. No longer were they just going to cater to dudes that loved playing Halo with their friends on Xbox Live. No, they were going to cast a wider net and try to appeal to as broad of an audience as possible, so they can kind of make up for the difference of Xbox One versus PlayStation 4 console sold. The plan, at least as someone looking from the outside in as a fan, was that they were trying to gain as many new customers as possible. And a big part of that pivot, a big part of that wide net that they were going to cast was Xbox Game Pass. It may not have been the world's first gaming subscription service, far from it, but it's become definitely the most recognizable, the most infamous, if you want to look at it that way. The Netflix of games, people were calling it, and some people still call it that. With Xbox's commitment to bring their first-party AAA games even to the service the same day that they launched, Game Pass was being propped up as Xbox's savior. It was going to be this thing that revolutionized gaming in the same way that Netflix revolutionized the film and television industry all those years ago. It's been almost 8 years since the launch of Xbox Game Pass. Has it reached those lofty goals that it was expected to fulfill? I've been subscribed for the past 4 years. I love Game Pass, but I'm starting to think how many other people love it as I do. And these recent comments from Phil Spencer have me seriously questioning how Xbox is feeling about Game Pass going into the future. Earlier this week, Phil Spencer was doing an interview with Variety, in which he straight up said Game Pass, Xbox Game Pass, is not for everybody. He further elaborates, if you play 1 or 2 games a year, Game Pass probably isn't the right business model for you. You should just buy those 2 games, and that would make total sense. But I want you to have the choice, so we remain focused on everything that's on Game Pass is also available to buy. I've always thought about Game Pass as just another option for somebody who wants to play. We have many business models for people playing, from free-to-play games, buying games, discounted games. Game Pass is an option. So when I'm looking at Game Pass, I want to make sure the hours that people are playing continue to go up, that new people see this as a way for them to find and build their library of games, and we remain focused on that. He mentions that the number of hours played amongst their console player base has gone up, and he credits Game Pass as a big part of why that is. He says Game Pass has been an important part of that, but I don't try to solve for Game Pass specifically on its own. It's kind of part of the equation for Xbox finding new players. Here's what I agree with. I definitely agree that Xbox Game Pass is not for everybody. And the example that Phil uses here is perfect. If you only play 1 or 2 games a year, new games, then Game Pass probably isn't for you. Whether there's only 1 or 2 games that you're interested in any given time, or maybe you don't have the time to play more than that. If you're one of those people, it's just not going to make sense for you financially, especially if you have your Game Pass subscription active over a long period of time. Because the longer that you have Game Pass, a month, 3 months, 6 months, a year, 4 years in my case, the more that you have to play in order to justify it. If December rolls around and you had Game Pass Ultimate for that whole year and you sit there and you think, dang, I only ever used it to play I don't know, Doom the Dark Ages or the Oblivion remaster, and then I didn't really use it for any other game. Is that really $240 worth of value to you? This is something that I've been thinking a lot about ever since they raised the price. I used to pay 15, 16 bucks for Game Pass Ultimate. It was a steal. Now it's 20 bucks a month. And for me personally, I'm still getting that value out of it, and Xbox, I believe, is doing a damn good job of making sure that we have really awesome games to play to justify that subscription. I mean, look at the month of April alone. We got Borderlands 3, Diablo 3, Reaper of Souls, we got the Oblivion remaster, South of Midnight, and also Clair Obscura Expedition 33, which people are saying is a Game of the Year contender. But again, if you don't have the time to play those games, if you only have the time to play just one of them, maybe Game Pass isn't for you. Oblivion remaster, I mean, you can spend hundreds of hours in that game. And from what I've been seeing about Expedition 33, that's kind of a slog too, in terms of the time needed in order to beat it and 100% it. There are also some other underrated aspects about Game Pass. Like if I play a game on Game Pass, don't like it, it stings a lot less than if I paid for it full price. And notice how up until this point, I've only been talking about Game Pass Ultimate because that is the only tier where you'll get these new day one editions. I haven't even thought about the other tiers, Standard and Core. That really raises the question of like, who's on those tiers? Why are you on those tiers? For Core, I can understand because it's cheap, it's basically Xbox Live, but Game Pass Standard, I don't know what the draw is for that middle tier. That middle tier, Game Pass Standard, it's just so weird to me. First of all, can you think of a more boring name for anything than Standard? Maybe that's the point. Like, they want you to look at this Game Pass Core. Okay, that's like the essentials. Game Pass Ultimate. Holy crap, that sounds really cool. Game Pass Standard? That sounds really boring. I know that Xbox, they don't have the best track record when it comes to naming their things. So I'm gonna believe that they went with Standard to make it as boring as possible so more people sign up for Game Pass Ultimate, or at the very least sign up for Game Pass Core. Don't get me wrong, it's not the worst thing in the world. If you're subscribed to Game Pass Standard, I don't think any less of you. There's a great library of games available for you to work through. You just don't get the newest stuff, but you'll still get, I'm pretty sure Borderlands 3 was added to Game Pass Standard as well. I wonder if the Standard tier is the more attractive one for newer Xbox owners, first-time Xbox owners. Back when I first got my PlayStation 5, I didn't have a PS4, and so I used my PlayStation Plus subscription to catch up on all the games that I missed last generation, like God of War 2018, Spider-Man, Horizon Zero Dawn. If you're a brand new Xbox owner, you buy a Series S, Game Pass Standard is a great way to catch up on all of the games that they released over the past couple of generations, especially in those bigger franchises like Halo and Gears of War. Game Pass Core is also a little bit of a mystery to me because when they switched it from Xbox Live Gold to Game Pass Core, my understanding was that everyone who was on Xbox Live was going to be suddenly Game Pass members. And at the time, there was a huge, massive difference between the amount of people signed up for Xbox Live Gold and the people who were signed up for Game Pass. I thought if they took all of the Xbox Live subscribers and converted them into Game Pass, the Game Pass numbers would just blow up. But as we found out, that was not the case. And that 32 million, 34 million, and that accounts for that conversion of taking the existing Xbox Live subscribers and making them Game Pass Core. I don't know what happened to the rest. Maybe they were inactive accounts. Maybe they were like, screw this, I don't want Game Pass Core. But that always seemed mysterious to me. Going back to Phil's comments though, if Game Pass isn't for everyone, who is it for? And just based off of the criteria that I've been talking about, Game Pass, specifically Game Pass Ultimate, that tier that gives you access to the newest, the latest games. People who are on that tier are people like me, who got a lot of time. I got a weird life, y'all. I'm a YouTuber for a living. I make content for a living, specifically about Xbox. I got a lot of time on my hands, and I don't have kids and a very understanding wife that lets me spend time with my hobbies. Not only do you have to have a lot of time to play all these games, but you also have to have an inherent interest in playing the latest games as soon as they come out. That to me signals that Game Pass Ultimate is catered to a more serious, hardcore gaming crowd, which seems to clash a little bit with Xbox's current strategy of casting that wide net, appealing to a broad audience. At the beginning of this generation, when Game Pass was like 10, 15 bucks. Every tier came with those day one editions. It seemed way friendlier to that casual crowd, to that new audience that Phil is alluding to in this interview. Because they were kind of like, yeah, maybe you've never owned an Xbox before. Maybe you don't know which games that you want to play or try out. But maybe you're familiar with stuff like Hulu, Netflix. We got a version of that too. If you buy our Xbox, you can basically have like a Netflix-like game service that can expose you to your next gaming fix. I don't know how many totally new people are being brought into the Xbox ecosystem through Game Pass. And they won't say either. Maybe that applies to people who see a game that they really like being added day one, like the Oblivion remaster. Those people go and sign up, try it out, and if they like Game Pass enough, they'll keep subscribed, or maybe they'll forget that they're subscribed and just let it roll. But here's the thing, Xbox has basically admitted that their hardcore audience, especially on console, that's not really what they're focused on because that's not where the growth is. They want to get Xbox on every screen, reach 1 billion people through cloud gaming, make a play into the mobile gaming space, get people playing Xbox on their phones. So I'm starting to wonder if Game Pass is for the more hardcore crowd, the more niche crowd. Is that enough growth for Microsoft to continue investing in it? The numbers already kind of indicate that it's not taking off in the way they may have hoped at the beginning of this generation. Last time we heard, Game Pass subscribers totaled around like 32 million, and that was February 2024. 4 or 5 years in, you bet that they wanted a lot more than that. But at the end of 2024, there was a swing in a positive direction for Game Pass and its growth, especially when they added Black Ops 6, Stalker 2, Avowed. They had a really great run to close out 2024, and it apparently contributed to a 30% growth in PC Game Pass specifically, which is crazy. They also saw an explosion in cloud gaming hours, 140 million total. And speaking of cloud gaming, this is an Xbox. Play Xbox anywhere you want. A lot of that hinges on cloud gaming. And if Game Pass isn't for everyone, quote unquote, what does that mean for their broader efforts to make everything an Xbox? Considering that you have to have Game Pass Ultimate in order to stream games at all. They've been going hard partnering up with other companies to bring the Xbox app to whatever device that they're rolling out. The Fire Stick, LG TVs, Samsung TVs. And while yeah, it's cool in theory, you don't need an Xbox to play Xbox games on this device, you still need a Game Pass Ultimate subscription. If Game Pass isn't for everyone, it sounds like they really need a cloud gaming streaming only tier. Listen, this is not an argument against Game Pass. I love it. That's why I've been a subscriber for the past 4 years. This video is questioning whether or not it's viable for Xbox in the long term. Again, Microsoft wants growth for their gaming division. If the growth isn't there, then it's not worth it for them. That's why they're doing this whole multi-platform shift. That's why they're doing this whole this is an Xbox thing. So the question becomes, even though Game Pass is awesome and I've been loving every moment of it, how long is Microsoft willing to pump money into something that caters only to a portion of its gaming audience and is not growing? Game Pass ain't so cheap to maintain. I love that it's an option, but is that option too expensive to maintain for Microsoft? How many new players are they getting through Xbox Game Pass? And I think 2025 is the year that we'll get a lot of those answers. Because if 2025 goes by and we don't see meaningful growth from Game Pass after they did all sorts of awesome drops with Avowed, South of Midnight, Doom the Dark Ages, Oblivion Remaster, Expedition 33, Ninja Gaiden 4. If people don't sign up for Game Pass after all that, what's gonna make them sign up? Anyways, guys, that's all the Xbox stuff I have to talk about today. Thanks so much for joining me for another edition of Xbox Ready. If you made it this far into the video, consider subscribing. Help me on my journey to 200,000 subs. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.